do you celebrate May 4th? Do you go to a special showing of episode 4 or hang out with some of your favorite characters? Or do you finally make that figure or toy purchase that you've been thinking about? Let us know in the comments below. In the meantime, join us as we make this lightsaber display, talk about Disney's new working lightsaber, how we think it works, and how we would have done it differently. But first, this is your Geek Fix. Once again, May 4th is here, the anniversary of the greatest film in my lifetime, probably also the first film actually I ever saw inside the movie theaters. And last year I released a video that I actually made a year before to commemorate that anniversary, with my twin self and I proving who really shot first using reenactment and animation and things like that. So I felt like really originally I had no reason to release a new film this year. But a friend of mine at work who is also a Star Wars fan wanted to celebrate May 4th and invited me to do something, and I thought, you know, I probably could do something. This is probably the most spur-of-the-moment video actually that I have made, or project that I have made. But May 4th is on Tuesday and I have to do something before then, and so I decided I better dig something out. Now I have a lot of Star Wars projects. There's a lot of previous videos I've been made with the intention of doing something more with the items that I opened or that I made. One of my initial projects that I planned to do with this channel was to do something more with that giant Millennium Falcon in the corner there. But for right now, the thing that is on my mind is something that would be collectible, something that's displayable, that she could have inside her office and that I also could bring for this special occasion. And I think there's something actually back here that I might be able to use. So, let's see. That one. Some parts for things. Haha! And there they are. These are both Darth Vader, the toy lightsabers. They have the red blade, the hilt. You can extend them out, and when you turn them on, not only does it make the sounds and have the lights, but also has a motion sensor to be able to detect tilt and make different sounds. And on top of that, here, you want to hold that one? When they make contact, they also make sounds, and so that's pretty cool too. Thanks. So, pretty cool. It's pretty neat for a toy, and actually, considering how old they are, I'm kind of surprised that they had such good technology in them. But I think that they could look a lot more realistic. Now, at the same time, these are not to scale. This is more of a child scale. The hilt should be, oh, probably about this much longer. Look at that. That's pretty cool. And there might be one or two other details. It looks kind of plasticky right now. We have some print on the sides. This shows up. Whew, I'm actually sweating from that little battle. But at any rate, I thought this might be kind of a cool thing to personalize and modify, mostly in paint. Now, of the toys, I will also say that this is probably one of the more realistic or accurate models that I've seen. There's some details that we just need to add a few little things or modify a couple things, but the body is there. All the bones that I need are there. So the first thing I think I need to do is to take these apart and to prep them to be able to be painted. So I will say that I do appreciate the actual build of these toys because they look a lot like the real thing. Now, the real thing was actually a modified light meter, which is used in film literally to determine lighting. So it is kind of cool that they use something like that to make the prop. I kind of assumed that these would have some C or D batteries inside, but nope, they're just AAA's, in fact. 3 AAA batteries. I'm looking for anywhere else that might have a screw that, oops, that I missed. So far I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 screws in this. Find out if that's all of them. I also don't know if something is glued on or anything like that. I think this part right here, whoops, there we go. This part comes off. And it's kind of sleeved on there. So I'm wondering if this is part of what's keeping it together. Okay. So there's a switch. Man, this can so easily be the thing that makes or breaks it. Just a couple of wires in there. And so, yeah, pretty easy to ruin this. Okay, so the question is, what is the next thing that's holding it together? It looks like this upper portion. The worst part is this could be something that's made not to come apart. I'd hate to break this by accident. I don't know if I'm doing that right. I don't think that's how you take that off. I wouldn't recommend doing it this way, but it did come apart, and it looks like, I thought it was something that's screwed on, but it looks like it was slid onto this other little part right here. So I was hoping taking that off was going to reveal something to me about how it was put together, but instead I'm actually more confused. How did they connect this? It's good that I have 2 of these, because then if I ruin one, I've still got a backup on how to get it in there. So unfortunately it might be actually glued right here, which means one of the downsides to not having a lot of time on a project like this is that then you have to resort to things that you'd really rather not. But I think in the end I'm gonna have to sacrifice one of these, figure out how to get inside, and because now I'm really curious too how it's put together. What's on the inside? I mean, what's an opening if I can't open it? But anyway, so yeah, looks like the downside to this is that it is glued on, well put together. But if you're wanting to take it apart, it's going to be a little bit hard to do that. So, at any rate. There we go. Oh, look. Unfortunately, it does appear that it is glued up there. So, I'm not going to be able to take the other one apart too cleanly. But, here's all of our innards of what is going on. So it looks like we have an analog switch for the touch and a couple of potentiometer sensors. One at the top to detect impact, so when it makes contact it senses that and plays that sound. And then a rotary sensor at the bottom to sense a swing and play that sound. And that's a pretty good sized speaker. It fills up the whole bottom. So that would explain the level of sound that I was getting. And 3 red LEDs at the top, which is unfortunate because I was hoping it would be a little bit easier to change the color if I wanted to, but I'm definitely not going to take the time to solder on some new ones. So yeah, so that looks like that's generally how the whole thing works. The brain and the mechanics are all up here at the top. So to paint this, rather than taking the whole thing apart, because I can't, I'm just going to take off parts like this sheath that's in the middle, as well as some of the smaller details that will just get in the way of my painting the rest of the body. And again, because I can't take the whole thing apart, I'm going to start by sanding the whole thing down, particularly pieces like this that have all these words on it that I don't want to show through later on or that would ruin its authenticity. So I'm going to just sand that down until it's completely flat, and it looks like it doesn't take too much actually to get rid of those letters. So that's a good thing. As far as masking things off, I'm going to use some of this masking tape to mask off the areas that I don't want to be painted, which at this point in time is just this area where the lights are in the top, and then the middle section where a lot of my electronics are. And I'm going to spray the entire thing with this flat gray primer. That'll give us a nice blank canvas to work with. And I don't know about you, but I love the way that things look when they're primed. It's just so clean. And once when the primer was dry, I was ready for my first coat. At this point in time, I didn't have to mask off anything differently. We're keeping the same areas masked off. But this time, I'm going to go through and spray it with this metallic finish, which is an aluminum color that I picked. The best thing about this kind of paint is that it's not just a paint, it's also an all-surface primer. And if you're wondering, well then why did you spray it first with the other primer? That's because that flat gray primer really helps to matte out and cover all of the colors so that they won't show through. Even when you're using a primer, say a white primer for example, if you haven't used something else like black or gray beforehand, a lot of times the colors will still show through, or you'll have details that will show through. So gray, black are pretty good, and they work really well for metallics. So that's what I did. Now metallic sprays dry fast, and that's great, especially since I'm going to be turning it and trying to get all the edges and everything covered. On the flip side, I want to make sure that it's truly bound already to that other primer. So I'm going to give it a little bit before I jump in with my next layer. So what am I going to be doing in the meantime, you may be asking? Well, I have another project, kind of a side project to this that I need to complete. I wanted a box to put it into. Went to Hobby Lobby, found this box, which seems perfect. It's the perfect size for my lightsaber, and so I'm going to also do some things with it to make it look a little bit more Jedi. Now you can decorate this however you want. What I decided to do is to take some black vinyl and I cut it out using my unnamed cutter at this point, and used it to create my stencils for what I wanted to put on the outside and on the inside. And I decided I wanted to replicate some of the other props that I saw out there. And so on the top I'm going to be putting the Jedi symbol with her name in Jedi on the front, which actually you can pretty easily access online. You just go online and find your alphabet or your font that is a Jedi font, and then type that out. And then on the inside I went with my favorite line from Star Wars. Do not. There is no Can't even do it. You haven't heard that one before? Do you know, it's true though. I mean, it's impossible to try something. No, it's not. It's impossible. Try to touch my finger. No, don't touch it. Try to touch it. Now you're not trying. Now you touched it. See? It's impossible. You can't try to do anything. So you either do it or you don't do it. Commit is the point of that saying. And I don't know. I just like it. Of course, I couldn't cover everything with a vinyl, so I also used some masking tape and taped off anything else that was exposed because I didn't want to risk any of this paint getting through. And the kind of paint that I ended up using was actually a black paint that has a little bit of metallic fleck in it because I thought that might give it a cool effect. At that point, just sprayed it on, covered the whole thing. It's okay if it doesn't cover it perfectly because we don't want this to be too dark. We want it to look kind of like it's burnt wood or that it's been stained in. And next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along this border. I want to create a little bit of a darker border that goes around the top and maybe even a little bit on these edges here. And so I'm just adding a little bit more. Yeah, that looks really good. Of course, the one problem is because this part of the wood is not cut very well and more of the grain is exposed, it's giving me, even with this type of stain, it's still giving me more of an unpredictable outcome. But generally speaking, pretty darn good. I like these wax-based stains because on wood like this, it doesn't seep in, it's predictable, it'll stay completely even, and you know what the color will be in the end. It goes on pretty quickly too, and it dries fairly quickly, so I really like it a lot for that reason. Now, the one mistake I made is I probably, if I could go back in time, because this stain honestly can go on anything, it doesn't matter if it's wood or not, I probably would have hit it a little bit with a little bit of sealer. I could have done that. I also could have just waited a little bit longer. The problem with this type of wood is that it's too tight for the paint to really bond with it, even though I used a primer. And so, for that reason, it will smear when putting this on if I'm not careful. And in a few spots, I did end up smearing it a little bit. So, mistake number one, don't drag across the paint if you can. So I'm trying to stay on the outside of my logos and my paint. Now I will go back and I'm going to spray it with a little bit of this. I'm using the Krylon Workable Fixative, which I'm going to seal this with. It'll give it a little bit of a dry look to it, and at the same time we'll keep it from smearing any further or from anything getting off of it. So that looks perfect. By now my lightsaber is ready for me to do the next level, the next piece. So it has this nice metallic look to it right now. And originally I wasn't sure what colors I wanted to go with. I thought about doing my Blue Galaxy or some of the paints that I've done before that have some kind of flecky look inside of them, or the change colors and have a bit of a rainbow appearance to them. But in the end, after experimenting with some different colors, I decided actually the best look would be some golds. I have a couple of different colors of gold that I could use. I even thought about doing some type of copper color. And in the end, I'm going to use some of this color of gold, and I'm going to spray it on the parts that were black. So that means that I'm going to have to go around and really mask this off well. So to do that, I'm going to be using two things: scissors and this black electric tape. Electric tape I really like a lot. I know different people might like different things for masking things off, but for me, I think that this tape is pretty great. It gives you nice straight lines, really clean lines for painting, and also I just find that it doesn't tend to pull off paint very much. And that's my biggest concern, is here I have this nice layer going on right now of that aluminum kind of paint. And even though it is a primer as well, it doesn't mean it's not going to pull off. So I don't want to have any bad effects on it. So there are two types of electric tape that I'll commonly use. One is really nice electric tape, which I then have to make not so sticky. And the one way to do that is you can just kind of apply and reapply and pull it away, or you can put it down on the table like this and then just pull it up. And what happens is it wears it down enough that it's not so sticky anymore, and yet it will still stick perfectly fine to that paint, just well enough to be able to cover things. But on the flip side, when I pull it off, it shouldn't be pulling off any paint. So wherever I wanted the silver to remain, I applied the tape, and wherever I wanted the gold, I left exposed. And then I sprayed it. I will say this paint you're going to want to go slow with. Do it a little bit at a time. In order to get this kind of shine, don't rush it, and also don't put on too much at one time. Now it's time to pull off the masking. Oh, that is really nice. It's so nice to see how clean lines are when you pull things off, and it just looks beautiful like this. Then I can customize it with a few metal details that I have laying around, make it look a little bit more realistic and pretty. Now, I suppose we could have made a saber for it. In fact, just last week, Disney released what they're touting to be a working lightsaber, meaning that it not only lights up, but can expand and contract, which is still pretty exciting to think about. I mean, to wonder how exactly they did that. I mean, you don't want to ruin the magic, but at the same time, being a geek, you want to know how, because there's some belief that if you do, somehow you'd be able to make your own. And of course the patents are public, so we get a peek into how it probably works, which we've come to learn is similar to this technology. Basically, a couple of measuring tapes that do give it the general shape and allow it to expand and contract, but at the same time aren't very strong. You move it around and it would do things like this, which might be why the Rey character in the videos is holding it so stiff and still. Now, if we were to do something like this, I think we'd want to make it a little bit more sturdy and strong in the center. And I think this could be done using more of a telescoping technology. This would allow us to create something that can expand and contract using just a couple of cables. You could also use a two-way motor to pull those cables, which is similar to technology that you would find in compact electric umbrellas. This would also give us a stronger body with a lot more space for lighting. Now, we could coil those lights similar to the Disney lightsaber, but I think it would work better to have it pulled up strand by strand. We could also use bands or fishing line to set up a sort of web for the outer form that could also assist sensors in being able to determine where there's contact to set off certain lights or sound. Now, if we had access to it, you could use the newest hydrogel material to be able to create the outside, but more accessible material might be things like this white sheer-tech stocking, which can stretch easily to about 5 to 6 times the length. Or in this case, we could use stretchy plastic tubing. And that would be enough to create something that looks and moves pretty realistically. Now, this is adequate, it works fine, but at the same time, these are the kind of LEDs that Disney's using, and in this model, this close to the shell, I don't think that I could diffuse the lights very well. So I think that a different alternative would be necessary. Now, I could use some stretchy polymer lights or some luminous optical fiber to get this effect. At least I could do that. But, I'm not planning on having a saber, so for that reason, don't really need it. And I'm pretty happy with what I've got. It looks great and it's ready to give. Now, by the time you see this, my friend probably would have already received the gift, and so you're probably wondering, well, what does she think? What does she say? And the answer is...
It's not a critter, is it?
No. That would be cool, though.
No, that wouldn't be cool. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
That's your name.
That is so above anything. Oh my gosh.
It kind of brought it down.
It almost makes me feel like crying a little bit.
That's awesome.
Extremely thoughtful
This
gift.
is my favorite saying too from the.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Yep. We hope you enjoyed this video and what you know what? Why don't you come around? Wow, really? Sure, come on. Yeah. Comfy? Like, subscribe, comment below. This is your Geek Fix. Can I be in the next video? No.